how to complete Form 04076, a tax return for when you've come to Denmark to study and are covered by the special rules for students. This means that you've had limited tax liability in Denmark for part of the year and full tax liability for the other part of the year. Therefore, you've had 2 periods of tax liability in the same income year. Go to skat.dk/forms. Click 04 Tax Return and Preliminary Income Individuals. You will find Form 04076 at the bottom of the page. Scroll down and click Download Form. The form will pop up in a new window. Save the form, open the downloaded form. On the first page, enter your CPR number. Read the guide on page 1 and move on to page 2. You've come to Denmark to study and need to fill in this form. If you're covered by the special rules for students, you won't be fully tax liable in Denmark until you've been here for 365 days within a 2-year period. This also applies if you have a home in Denmark. Your full tax liability starts on day 366 of your stay. If you have income that is taxed in Denmark in the first 365 days, like pay or SU, you have limited tax liability on that income. From day 366 of your stay in Denmark, you have to declare your income and assets outside Denmark. If you were registered in the Danish National Register on the 1st of August 2022, for example, and you were away from Denmark on holiday for 35 days in total, you wouldn't have full tax liability in Denmark until the 5th of September 2023. For example, if you received SU, a student grant, or worked in Denmark from the 1st of October 2022 to the 30th of June 2023, you would be subject to limited tax liability in Denmark on this income during the period. Fill in the dates for each period of tax liability in Denmark. Fill in income and what's relevant for you by first calculating the amounts for each tax liability period. To find the information, check your service letter, which you will find by logging on at skat.dk/tastsel and choosing See Your Tax Assessment Notice, and then select Document. You will also receive your service letter by post along with your tax return. Your service letter includes information reported by your employer, SU or bank, for example. Here, you will find the information in the box numbers that correspond to Form 04076. If, during your first 365 days in Denmark, you work and receive SU, you are subject to limited tax liability in Denmark for the period you have income. In 2023, you had limited tax liability in Denmark from the 1st of January to the 30th of June. In 2023, you had full tax liability in Denmark from the 5th of September to the 31st of December. You need to calculate and distribute your total income between your 2 tax liability periods. The income you earned with full tax liability should be declared in the column for full tax liability. Likewise, the income you earned with limited tax liability should be declared in the column for limited tax liability. It may help you to find your income information in e-tax, tast selv, under tax information. Here the income is specified by month. Fill in your calculated income in each of the columns for full and limited tax liability. For instance, box 11, earned income, and box 16, SU, pension, unemployment benefits, etc. Fill in the fields that are relevant to you based on your information. If a form number is referred to in a box, please complete that form and send it together with this tax return if you have any information to add. Grey boxes should not be completed. Remember to enter and distribute your deductions between the two tax liability periods. This could be if you have a deduction for non-Danish students. During the period of limited tax liability, you can only deduct expenses related to your income. Please note that there could be other rules if you are covered by the cross-border worker rules and want to apply them. Box 69 is for your personal allowance. You don't automatically get a personal allowance when you have limited tax liability in Denmark. You can therefore select it yourself in box 69. You can only have a personal allowance for the period you have income from Denmark and are subject to limited tax liability in Denmark. You automatically get a personal allowance during the period you are fully tax liable in Denmark. If you have a period with full tax liability, but also income and assets from outside Denmark, you need to complete other forms along with Form 04076. For example, Forms 04012 and 04053. Once you have completed your tax return, click Save and submit it via Contact in e-tax, tast selv, or by regular post. Once we have processed your tax return, we will let you know by email, text message, or send you a tax assessment notice by post. Please note that this could take up to 6 months. Read more about declaring non-Danish income at skattepligtigt/non-Danish income. This page also includes information about the cross-border worker rules. You can also read more about the special rules for students. Visit the page Coming to Study to read more about having 2 periods of tax liability as a student.